So is the stock market about to do a complete 180? We're going to break down the data, look at 10 specific stocks, and figure out if they're signaling a huge shift in where the money is going. Let's get right into it.
All right, to really get where we might be heading, we've got to look back at what just happened because honestly, the market just pulled off something that statistically it just shouldn't have happened. Okay, so you got to understand, September is typically a total disaster for the S&P 500. I mean, historically, it's the only month that averages a loss. But this past September, not only did it not go down, it actually went up by 0.8%. That's a big deal. And this isn't just some one-off fluke. According to the analysts we're following from Stock Charts TV, this unexpected strength could be just the beginning. They literally said, we're moving into the most bullish time of the year. So yeah, it really feels like the market's got some serious momentum right now.
All right, so let's set the stage. Given how positive everything's looking, what's the big picture right now?
I mean, as of early October, the market is just on fire. We're talking record highs for both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. One analyst is even calling for the S&P to hit 7,000 before the year is out. And here's the funny thing. We got some weak jobs data, which you'd think is bad, but it's actually great news for the market. Why? Because it makes it more likely the Fed will start cutting interest rates. But, okay, underneath all this good news, something else is going on, something a little weird. There's one specific sector that's been flying under the radar, and it's suddenly starting to make some very interesting moves. And wow, this chart really tells the story, doesn't it? The S&P 500 had a great week, up 1.1%. That's solid. But look at the healthcare sector. It just went into absolute overdrive, surging an incredible 5%. That's a huge difference. And look, this is why that 5% jump is such a massive deal. It wasn't just one good week. This move completely shattered a downtrend that's been going on for a full year. For you chart watchers out there, you know what that is. It's a major, major technical reversal. Okay, so a breakout that big begs the question, what's going on inside the healthcare sector? Let's peel back the layers and see what's driving this. So what's really powering this thing? You know, when you see a 5% jump in a sector that massive, it's usually not everything moving at once. It's almost always a sign that a few key areas are just exploding. And yet, the data backs it up completely. It really came down to two industries doing all the heavy lifting. Pharmaceuticals were up an incredible 9.3%, and biotechnology was right behind them, up 8%. These two were basically the rocket fuel for the entire sector. So this leads to the next logical question. How did the analyst actually find the best stocks in this hot area? Well, they used a really straightforward three-step playbook. Step 1, find the hottest sector. Check, that's healthcare. Step 2, find the leading industries inside it. Check, pharma and biotech. And then step 3, use their technical tools to zero in on the absolute strongest stocks within those groups. And their go-to tool for this is something called the Scooter Score, or SCTR. You can just think of it like a power ranking for stocks. It looks at their technical strength over the last 5 months and gives them a score from basically 0 to 100. Super simple. The higher the score, the stronger the stock. So here's where it gets crazy. When the analyst ran a screen for stocks that had the biggest improvement in their Scooter Score lately, the results were just jaw-dropping. Out of the top 13 large-cap stocks showing the most new momentum, 12 of them were from healthcare. This isn't just a small trend, folks. That's a tidal wave. All right, so after all that digging, which specific stocks actually made the final list? Let's get to the good stuff. Here are the 10 names the analysts flagged as potentially being on the verge of a huge move. And here they are. Now, no surprise, it's dominated by healthcare. You see names like Icon, IQVIA, Biogen, AbbVie, Pfizer. The list goes on. But what's super interesting to me are the few non-healthcare names that snuck in. You've got Tesla, Olin Corp from the chemical space, and even CleanSpark. So even outside of healthcare, there are pockets of strength showing up. Let's zoom in on one of these for a second. Pfizer, PFE. This stock has been beaten down for a while, right? But it just broke out of what chartists call a bottoming head and shoulders pattern. All you need to know is that that's a classic sign that a long downtrend might be over and a new uptrend could be starting. And the fact that it happened with a massive spike in volume, that makes it even more compelling. And hey, let's look at one of those outliers too. Tesla. It just broke out of another classic pattern called a symmetrical triangle. Again, without getting too technical, that pattern often signals that a stock is coiling up for a really big move. The analyst take? This breakout could be what sends Tesla on a run to challenge its old all-time high.
Okay, so we've got a strong market, a breakout sector, and a list of strong stocks. What does this all add up to? Let's put the pieces together. The big idea here, the main takeaway, is that this probably isn't just a one-week fluke. What all this data suggests is a major rotation happening under the surface of the market. Big money is flowing out of other areas and pouring into this healthcare space that, let's be honest, has been ignored for a long time. It really feels like a sleeping giant is starting to wake up.
And so that leaves us with the big question, right? The analyst has laid out a really compelling case that a major shift into healthcare is underway. But is this just a temporary blip, or are we really at the very beginning of a new, long-term trend where healthcare leads the market higher?